Iowa basketball is moving on from Fran McCaffery. We come to you from the road with a rapid reaction podcast. What's next for Iowa basketball today? Locked on Hawkeye.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We're available wherever you find podcasts. You can also watch us on YouTube. While you're there, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Just takes a moment and helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. Today's episode is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay with us for the Armada Team of the Week later on in the episode. Glad to have you aboard with us here today as I come to you from the road. We're going to talk about, obviously, what is next for Iowa basketball, some of the coaching candidates that make sense, the two easiest names that are there, and then we're going to dive a little bit deeper into things, and we will get into that as an era comes to a close after 15 years, Iowa moving on from Fran McCaffery, call to firing, parting ways, whatever terminology that you want to use. The change is here. And we have talked about this from all angles. And if you've been listening to me here on Locked On Hawkeyes for the better part of 6 weeks, we knew this was inevitable. Now, I was not reporting that he was gone, but if you've been listening, you're an everydayer, you know the direction that this was heading. And I said as much for the better part of 6 weeks. This is where we are. And this is what was going to happen. Is it fair to Fran McCaffery? Probably not. When you look at it strictly in the basketball sense, it isn't. The guy at a place that is difficult to win was a winner. 10 out of 11 years before this season with a winning record in the Big Ten. Something only Michigan State accomplished. NCAA tournaments and a stretch of 7 out of 8 years. Something that no coach at Iowa has accomplished. There were successes. There were marks. But there were a couple of major demerits, and the biggest one for so many fans was the Sweet 16. We had somebody on the comments yesterday's podcast talk about that. Why the Sweet 16 for so much of the fan base, why that is the end-all be-all. And in a way, I completely agree. Because you can have a very successful program. Iowa's had a very successful program during this run and not get to the second weekend. There's some bad luck involved. There's some bad games involved. There's some bad coaching involved. All those things go hand in hand with not ultimately getting to that second weekend. And I think we're going to look back. And when we look back at this era, I think it's going to be looked at much more positively. I mean, you look at Dr. Tom Davis. Now, to continue to see the revisionist history that is out there. Yes, they made the Sweet 16 his final season. But before that, they went a decade without a Sweet 16. Coming on the heels of one of the most successful eras of Iowa basketball, and Dr. Tom couldn't get him back until the decision was made by Bob Bowlesby not to renew his contract, and he had that lame duck season. That's why he was let go. It's because of lack of success. Attendance was starting to dwindle. The inability or the unwillingness to go out and schedule at a level in the non-conference that excites the fan base. What does this sound like? Yes, they're not exactly the same, but the similarities between the end of the Dr. Tom era and the Fran McCaffery era are very, very similar. The programs that they built are very, very similar. Fran McCaffery walked into a hideous situation with the corpse of a program that Todd Licklider left them. Dr. Tom walked into one of the most best situations in all of college basketball, maybe in my lifetime. You think of that group that he inherited in the 86-87 team. There was a long time that roster had the most players that played in the NBA. For better part of 15 years, they had the record. Most players on a roster to play in an NBA game. 86-87 Iowa. And there was a Kentucky team then that finally beat that record. How nuts is that? It's absolutely crazy. That's what he inherited. So they're completely different. But after those classes moved on, after the first 3 years for Dr. Tom and for Fran McCaffery, these are the same programs. So Iowa moves on. And as Iowa moves on, Now the next question is, who's going to be the next coach? What else are they going to do? And in that direction, we're going to get into that. And that's going to be obviously the basis of our next few shows, unless a decision is made more quickly than anybody can anticipate. I want to say something else, though, about Fran McCaffery and the outpouring of support. One of the things about Fran McCaffery that we've known throughout his tenure is he is beloved by his players. He stands up for his guys. His dudes, he's going to be there for them. And does he go over the top sometimes? Yeah. But you know he is there supporting his guys. You know that he is going to be there every single time with their back. That's Fran McCaffery. That's who he is. That's how he's built. And when we go through and we look at the outpouring of support on social media from his former players, it shouldn't come as a surprise. We know that they love him and he loves them. In today's environment, with the transfer portal being what it is, the ability to trash programs on the way out, you don't see that. You didn't see that during Fran McCaffery's tenure. So don't take it as some kind of knock on the athletic department and Iowa basketball, on the future of the program, because players are upset that their coach got let go. Yeah, Connor's going to say his thing because Connor always says something. Connor McCaffrey, he's a loudmouth, and that's okay. He's got a lot of that Philly that his dad has in him. He's not your choir boy Midwest guy, right? And that's okay. His dad just got fired at a place that he's the all-time winningest coach. And for not just the Suns, but for all the former players to say things, take this, and be frustrated by it, you could understand. That's okay. And I think all of us, when we get a little bit more separation, we're going to realize the good things that Fran did, the good things that he created with this team and with this program. And there's going to be those positive things. Firings are not easy. It's not. And the likelihood is Iowa's next coach, are they going to be able to sustain success? Be a solid program year after year like Fran McCaffery? Probably not. What has to change? Well, you start with this. There needs to be an investment in the men's basketball program. And that starts at the top. Yes, NIL is a huge component to it. We'll get to that. But at the top, the athletic department needs to make a concerted effort that they are going to invest in this program, that they're going to do the things necessary to generate interest. The marketing department, here you go. Here's your opportunity. And for Iowa sports, it's pretty easy. We're at the point with women's basketball and wrestling and football, you put up the tickets, people are buying them. That's not the case for men's basketball. Men's basketball is supposed to be your second cash cow as an athletic department. In general, that's the case across the country. It hasn't been that case at the University of Iowa. You're going to have to go out and engage. And the new coach is going to have to engage. And not just engage the fan base, which is going to be a huge part in getting people in the building, but also they're going to have to engage those big money boosters. That's what they need to make happen. They need to be able to make waves in the financial part and catch up. Britain said it after their final game against Illinois. They need upwards of $6 million to compete in the Big Ten. Iowa's at $1 million. I mean, they're operating at best 1/4 of the budget needed to be there. And that also shows you the incredible job that Fran McCaffery's done before NIL, pay for play, and the things that have been created in college athletics now. He did it with less. There was no cutting corners. There were not the things that you see at other programs. He's by the books, and he was able to have that success. And in today's environment, without the financial backing, he still was able to have successes. He's a good coach. I'm going to miss Fran. I am. I'm not going to miss the divisiveness of the fan base. I'm not going to miss how checked out the fan base is for men's basketball. I've told you before, Iowa men's basketball, Iowa hoops is what made me a Hawkeye fan. As a little kid in the 80s, it was it. That was the thing. More than Iowa football, more than Iowa wrestling. It was Iowa basketball. And though it'll never be back to the level that it was, I get that. Things change, things evolve. It can still be back to being an important part being a Hawkeye fan. And that's what I'm looking forward to. So where does Iowa turn? Beth Getz has a decision. Who is going to be the next Iowa head coach? We'll talk about some of the intel, some of the things that we've been hearing here as we continue. This is Locked On Hawkeyes. Today's episode is brought to you by Nissan. We're all about the stats because numbers don't lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X, the numbers are on an MVP level. With the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, it can quite literally carry the whole team, plus the gear wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room for up to 8 people, the Armada Pro 4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada Pro 4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where'd all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much money we were spending on food delivery. Now I can budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code Locked On at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That is Locked On College. Locked On College at monarchmoney.com for your 50% off your first year. monarchmoney.com. And again, that code Locked On College for half off your first year, all with Monarch Money. Trent Condon back with you once again here, Locked On Hawkeyes, as we come to you from the road in, how about this, South Bend, Indiana. Fran McCaffery, former assistant in Notre Dame, and yes, on the road, making our way out to my niece's baptism. So we will be on the road with you here the next couple of days. Well, on the road means you get plenty of windshield time, plenty of opportunity to talk to people, and I've been talking to some people. Now, this goes back for weeks, and as we have passed along to you, as we do with any rumors, innuendo on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast, with also always putting in the caveat with the understanding that, yes, these are a lot of times rumors. This is not official. This is not breaking news. So don't go running off and tell your friends Condon's reporting. It's not reporting. I'm speculating and connecting dots. And during this whole time, I've continued to hear about Darian Devries. Darian Devries, his connection to the state of Iowa, his understanding of the Iowa basketball program, the depths of knowledge that he has, the people that he knows, as I mentioned yesterday on the podcast. I think that's something that needs to also be remembered. Darren is a winner. And Darren, after being at Creighton for an incredibly long time, and doing it under two great coaches, Dana Altman and Greg McDermott, what he learned there, what he translated to Drake. Drake, I think now, maybe our ideas, our perceptions are a little bit different of what that program was. That was a Warbin program. Yeah, they had the great year in 2008, 2009. But outside of that, we're talking about a program that you have to go all the way back to, even the early 80s before you're talking any kind of real success. They go to the Drake Invitational. That was the opening round of the Missouri Valley Tournament when the 8, 9, and 7, 10 games were happening on the first night of the tournament. And Drake was there seemingly every year. I think it was 15 out of 16 years, something like that they were playing in that opening round. That's how bad that program was. And he turned them into a consistent winner. Now he goes to West Virginia, a place that hadn't had much success over the last couple of years, turned them into a winner and maybe an NCAA tournament team, and did it, losing his son in the process 10 games into the season. He knows people in the state. He knows people with money in the state. And not just his brother, but other people in the state. You have a guy that knows how to win, knows what it is to be a Hawkeye, understands as an Iowan what this job is going to be. And he knows the game. I think it would be a home run. I believe it is a number one. There are still things that need to be worked out. There's still contracts that need to be sent. And the biggest part is also the financial part. But because Beth Getz made this decision so quickly, I think we know that Beth Getz knew this was also coming. And she's been working the back channel. She's been working with the people that have the money that can make these things happen. You got the $4.2 million that's going to go to Fran in the buyout. To buy out Darian Devries, you're talking about another $4.5 million. New coaching staff, all the things that go along with it. That's a reality. That is how things work. And then building up the budget as it pertains to NIL. These are all things that need to happen. And if Iowa can show Darian Devries, if Beth Getz can show Darian Devries that all those things are happening, all those things are possible, then he's going to be the next head coach. I truly believe that. If everything works, everything is shown, and Iowa can show the ability to make it all right, then he will be Iowa's next head coach. If not, then we go next. Ben McCollum is another guy on the list that makes a ton of sense. The Iowa angle is not important. Caden Fry wasn't an Iowan. Kirk Ferentz, not an Iowan. Lute Olson, not an Iowan. Dr. Tom, not an Iowan. Fran McCaffery, not an Iowan. Being an Iowan is not a prerequisite, but in a program and an understanding, it's not a bad thing. And it's a good place to start. Ben McCollum, born in Iowa City, lived in Storm Lake, was an all-state player there, went to Northwest Missouri State, and basically never left. Built that program into a D2 power. What he's done at year number one at Drake has been absolutely eye-opening. He's a stud. He wins, and he's going to win wherever his next job is. Now, is Indiana involved there? That's a question that needs to be asked because the Virginia job is the Indiana job, is much more coveted than the Iowa job. The Virginia job might be more coveted than the Iowa job. But all those things aside, that would be obviously a slam dunk number two if you can bring a guy in. Even with that slowdown style, you win with any style, people are going to come back. Winning cures all. It's as simple as that. You win, people are going to show up. And they'll make excuses for your program when you're winning, even if it is a boring style of basketball. Yes, it didn't work for Licklider. That doesn't mean it wouldn't work for McCollum. Chris Jans is the one that I've been talking about a ton. He has squeezed about as much as you can out of the Mississippi State apple. You look at that program as a whole and what he's been able to accomplish. Good coach, another Iowa background, a lot of things. Again, it comes down to Darian Devries, and that's where this conversation starts. So that's why we start the conversation there. I believe if everything happens, if Iowa shows the ability that they got the money, that they are going to be able to arm him with an NIL budget to compete in the Big Ten level, that he'll be the guy. We will see. On the road, Locked On Hawkeyes, thanks for being with us here today. Again, we'll be back with you throughout the weekend. Anything happens, we got you covered as well. That's a great thing. We can go remote, and we will be doing that coming up this weekend from Cleveland, Ohio. Yes, spring breaking in Cleveland. Nothing better than that. Thanks for being with us and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day for this bonus edition on the road here on Saturday morning. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Until then, go Hawks.